Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day and I'm CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, and we're specialist payroll and HR recruiters. Now, they say the quieter we are, the more we hear, and that listening is the secret to discovering the greatest of stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's fantastic guest. Today, I am joined by an absolute global payroll leader in this space, CIPP qualified, Giles, who is currently payroll strategist at Papaya Global. Now, Ian has worked in payroll for over 25 years. And as you will soon discover, he is an advocate for all things payroll, especially in relation to shaping the future of the profession. What does the word payroll, though, mean to you?
Somebody that I've known for not nearly as long as I've known you describes payroll as being life. And I think that's what it is. To me, I think the profession is one that's been around for, well, since we all actually started doing something. We've all wanted to be paid in one form or another, whether or not it be seashells or honey or coin or whatever it might be. And I think it's only fair to say that it's probably one of the only three things that is absolutely guaranteed in life. One of them is that you'll pay tax, and I've never wanted to work for the Inland Revenue or the IRS or anywhere else. One of them is unfortunately death, and I've never wanted to be an undertaker, and we all want paying for something. So, whether or not you move around from one business to the other, I think payroll is pretty much a profession for life.
Fantastic. What a great, I'd love taking a little bit of a trip into the history of payroll, because you're absolutely right. This has stood the test of time, right? Since the currency has been invented, been before currency, people have been trading wares for generations. And, to be someone who's looked a custodian of that process, shall we say, I think is a really exciting time, particularly now in the world of global payroll. So why is global payroll in particular post-pandemic becomes so increasingly complex? And it is, and we're seeing a lot of companies come into this sphere, and then suddenly they're bamboozled by the complexity of it. I wonder if you can demystify some of that for us.
I think absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've worked with some very large businesses. I've worked with some small businesses as well. And as of this week, you may have seen, Papaya is actually now a Time 100 listed company, which is absolutely fantastic. But in terms of global payroll, why is it so complex? It's the fact that we're bound by rules. They're only getting tougher, but I think that's absolutely a good thing, and it's being made more difficult for all the right reasons. If you take the EU Trade Transparency Directive, for example, I think it's going to be a game changer in terms of fairness for both the applicant as well as the employee. It's going to make lots of businesses have to do things that they haven't done before. If you look at Spain, for example, their gender pay gap reporting is based on a difference of 25%. When this act comes around, it's going down to 5%. That's a massive shift in what everybody is having to do. And, it's great. If you look at those kind of things, it has to be done properly and it has to be implemented properly. I've seen jobs advertised in the United States where the salary is between $20,000 and $1 million. If you're going to do it properly, do it fairly. And I think this is a great way to actually get the EU in that place and leading the rest of the world.
Nice. You mentioned as well, I'll have to jump on this because I think this is such an important thing to raise. We're talking about raising the profile of the profession. You mentioned at the start of that Papaya have been recognized in the Times 100. Now, actually, this is way more important than perhaps you've just given it merit to, in my opinion. I know you know why, right? Finally, we've got a business, a genuine unicorn company, and there aren't many of those out there. And I'd love to know what it feels like to work for such a fast-growing business as well, because it's a unique opportunity for me to ask that question. So we'll come back to that. But they're in the Times 100, which for me is one of the first times since I've been in the profession that I'm seeing a business now really thrusting payroll into the limelight. We've got a payroll company in the Times 100. Tell us a bit more about that.
So, yeah, I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. And you're absolutely right. We are the first payroll and payments business to ever feature in this list. It's absolutely phenomenal. And if we can actually use that self-promotion and what we're actually doing in the marketplace at this moment in time to make people sit up and realize how important payroll is, that has got to be a good thing. I think payroll has sat in the back of a business for far too long, not getting the investment that other parts and other functions of businesses get. If you look at ATS, HRIS, HCM, ERP, People are putting all of their money into
Yeah.
there, but they're not in payroll. But payroll is one of those things that people only really start looking at, and it only really starts getting into the news when it goes wrong. When it goes wrong, it's generally and often far too late to do something about it. Reputation goes out the window, perception, and all of those kind of things start, really rocking the boat. What we're doing at Papaya is definitely leading the way, and I'm really, really glad to be part of it. I've known Papaya for 2.5, 3 years, had the possibility and the opportunity to kind of like join them a while back, but the timing wasn't quite right. Conversations took place at the back end of last year, and I got my opportunity to join again. Everything happens for the right reason at the right point in time, and it's really, really great to be part of this unicorn experience and see what's going on. There's still more to come.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We were talking about those different ERP, HCM, and HRIS. Maybe think of, I don't know why I made me think of it. Maybe think of a Cinderella story, right? I was thinking of those as like the ugly sisters, and we've got Cinderella who's at home, the forgotten one, right? But actually, it's a beautiful thing, and it's amazing now to see payroll as the Cinderella, as something that's being recognised in the Times 100. And what's it like working for such a fast-moving global business, and what's your experience been like, having worked in so many different organizations, both on a consultancy basis and a permanent basis? You've come in and fought in transformational journeys as well. What's been your experience so far?
My experience over the last 6 months has been phenomenal. No one day is the same as the next. No one day is the same as the last. We're talking about payroll, but I don't do payroll in my role and haven't done it since I've been here. I get to talk about payroll every single day of the week, and I'm hoping that the conversations that I have with payroll leaders, with people that are hosting podcasts like yours, are actually getting us out there, and we're creating voices for it. It's such an important part of business as well as individuals' lives. It's not something that we can have a go at. We've got to do it properly, and that's what it's about for me. I have lots of conversations about what payroll used to look like, what it was like a few months ago, and the direction that it's heading in, but it is gaining the momentum it should be. I've had the conversation with a few people, and I'd kind of like to raise the subject here, but I think it's about time we actually saw the first chief payroll officer within a business. A seat at the table, payroll being able to be a senior stakeholder in the C-suite, driving strategy for a business rather than sitting in finance or sitting in HR. We should be going that alone.
What about some of the pain points you're seeing some of your clients come to you with in the world of global payroll, or perhaps you're just seeing from a strategic point of view at the moment?
So I get involved in all kinds of conversations with the business. I act as an advisor. I find myself in RFPs, in sales trainings, in sales meetings. So I get to meet our teams. I get to meet the teams of potential clients and external clients as well, and they will have a varying and somewhat different story. I think there is a frustration out there in the market that people aren't using tools that are built for payroll. Not specifically, the payments industry, for starters, hasn't really changed within the last 30 years, and we're paying people almost at the whim of banks, third-party payment providers. If the money lands at the right point in time, then absolutely great. We're focusing on the land date rather than the send date, which is quite an important part of that. I can see that people aren't getting the reports that they want. Their analytics aren't data-driven. They've got post-payroll reporting, and a lot of that you will get because of the disparate systems that global payroll teams are having to work with. If you're working in 10 countries, you could have 10 different solutions, 10 different providers. Sure. Trying to actually get those into a single currency in a single language is a task in itself that's generally done when you've pressed that big magic red button that gets everybody paid. Today, payroll and what we're trying to do is all about providing information now as well as looking into the future.
I know that you give yourself out voluntarily as a global payroll mentor as well. You do some work with the GPA. I know Mel very, very well. If someone was coming to you then as a payroll manager now with some mentorship, with the payroll strategic experience that you have, what are the kind of key pointers or key things you would like to pass on if you only had a couple of minutes with them and you can give them that 1 or 2 bits of advice to help them on their journey? What would it be?
I think it doesn't really matter whether or not you've actually been in payroll for a year or 20. Having a conversation with somebody in the industry is a valuable conversation. You know, we can have mentors within businesses, but unless they actually speak payroll, you're not necessarily having the same conversation.
Sure.
One of the pieces of information that I would pass on to somebody is be vocal, you know, without making a name for yourself. You know, you don't want to get yourself a bad reputation, but I feel that there's a lot of people in payroll that accept what they have, the tools that they're working with, and everything else that goes along. I do feel that there are a lot of people in payroll who only complain about their day when they go home to their significant other half. They don't complain to their bosses, senior stakeholders about how poor the tools are that they have to do the job with. So, you know, doing that is quite an important something. If you can make positive and an effective change within payroll, what you are doing is shaving time off your processes that will enable you to get to valued adding activities. Now, to me, if you can get to a value adding activity, you're making your payroll more strategic than it ever was. I kind of like, you know, I align it to the fact that one of the things I did with a client a little while ago was suggest to them that on the last working day of every single month, they opened a Zoom or a Teams call for the payroll team to sit there and wait for people to kind of like come in, tell them about, you know, their payroll, whether or not it was great, it was good. Have a conversation with them. If you can invest 4 hours at the end of your payroll cycle just in an open conversation, it means you've got a lot of other things done that you couldn't possibly. The majority of payrolls these days tend to be reactive. And I think on occasions, we're more of a firefighter than we are a payroller, because there are so many things that, you know, and fires that we have to put out. Payroll shouldn't be like that at all. We have to take the effort out and make the reward much better than it is. If you can get from that reactive payroll to a controlled payroll where you are improving your processes, your education, and your knowledge every single time, it's one step closer to that strategic payroll.
Yeah, for sure. It's great advice. What I like as well is the idea of promoting that social connection, you know, taking that even completely out of a payroll context, that peer-to-peer reviewing, the ability to speak to our teams, you know, that's something that's been lost a little bit. We know it's linked to mental health, and I'm taking it out of the payroll conversation a little bit because I think this works across all industries. But we don't spend sometimes enough time talking with our teams and finding out what's going on underneath the hood, and realizing then when we know those problems and we bring them out into the open, actually that's a chance we can be proactive rather than reactive to you know, preventing potential issues coming later by open communication. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day, and remember, every great conversation starts with great listening. Till next time.